Hey guys, so we're going to go through my morning mobility routine. It's something that I hope or aim to do 5 days out of the 7-day week. And I wanted to share it with you, especially during a time where we're getting less movement and we're getting outside probably less, and in general our body's just craving that movement that it needs to be healthy. The goal with this is to go through it in real time like I would do it. It's probably going to take about half an hour. I'm hoping that you can follow along. I will give instruction as we go. And with this follow along, I'll try and go at the normal pace I would, explain things as I would. If you need to make it shorter, you can do the different mobility drills for less time, or you can take complete things out of it. We'll see if it takes about half an hour. So I usually like to start by getting down on the ground. And because it's early in the morning, a little bit extra time flat on your back is okay. Hands on your belly. And we're just going to take nice big breaths in, drawing the air down into our the lowest part of our lungs by pushing our belly out when we breathe in and sucking that belly back in when we breathe out. And when I feel comfortable and ready, I'll take my hands up overhead and reach out with a big cat-like stretch, pointing my toes, reaching my hands. Big breath. And hold this for a few moments. Now you can hold this as long as you want because it feels good. You'll probably get a good stretch in through the armpits. And then when I'm ready, I will typically come up, grab my toes, and I'll work on pedaling the feet a little bit, bending through the knees. If you can't grab your toes or grab your foot, you can always grab a towel and wrap it around. But I'll spend a little bit of time here just pedaling out, working through the hamstrings, probably working through the low back if it's stiff or tight. The key for all of this, so I don't have to keep repeating it, is nice, easy breaths the entire time. So I feel ready, I feel pedaled out. What I typically like to do next is I'll go in and I'll do a deep squat. And with that deep squat, I'm just going to work on opening up the hips, pushing out with the elbows. If you can get into this position, go as deep as you can. Or you can always put a pillow or a book underneath your buttock. And so when I start to feel a little bit looser, I'll start doing some side to sides, pushing with the elbow. If you get any knee pain with this, don't do it. Talk to your local chiropractor or let me know. So I'm going side to side. I'm putting just a little bit of pressure on the knees with my elbows, and I feel a little bit looser. And generally I would progress on to the next move when things start to feel a little bit better than when they started. And so the next thing I'll do is I'll get in through the hamstrings and the adductors. Foot is pointed up, and the goal with this, I want to feel this through the inside of the hamstrings. I'll typically grab onto the foot, oscillate around a little bit. I'm not bouncing, more so just working and rotating through the hip joint here. That's what's causing this foot to move in and out. And I'm also just applying a little bit of a pull here to work through the hamstrings and the adductors. You can also put a little bit of pressure down and out. That's going to get more of the adductors on the inside of the knee here. Sometimes I'll also work on squatting back or forward. And that'll just work through the tissues again on the inside of your hip. For me, with doing a lot of cycling, this is a position I'll spend a bit more time in than maybe some others, just because I want to make sure that my hips and my legs are healthy so I can be fast on the bike. Go over to the other side, we're going to do the same thing. And then when you get over to the other side, you'll probably notice that there is quite a difference from the leg you just left, feeling a little bit more mobile, a little bit looser. And this leg feeling, for lack of a better term, a little bit tighter, less mobile. Now, if you do sit all day and you don't have a standing desk yet, This is something that you'll want to do, I imagine, day after day, so that at 60 years old, you can actually touch your toes instead of just being able to touch your knees. Now, one thing I didn't show on the other side is I like to do this little maneuver where I roll the ankle in and push down through the hip, like I'm trying to get my groin to touch the floor. And that will, for lack of a better term, open up the groin, but you're really stretching the groin muscles, or the adductors, the adductors. Since I forgot it on the other side, oh, and that feels very good today after a large week on the bike so far. So it's funny, like you are going through this and you're like, oh yeah, I'm forgetting to breathe, mainly because I'm talking, but nice easy breaths in as we go through this. You can work through it a little bit slower. I feel like the pace-o-mat's probably the upper end of speed or quickness that you want to use. That's starting to feel more symmetrical side to side. So I'm going to move on. I'm going to do some more hip openers now. Now I've got an Instagram post on this hip opening protocol. So I will post that wherever this gets posted. Hand is on the foot. One hand is beside it. And for this, I'm going to rock back and forth with my buttock. I'll show it at a different angle here in a second. And we're really working the right hip here with my hand on my foot, holding it in place, and my other hand on the ground. And this is going to try to isolate that movement in through the hip. You can also do some circles. And basically when that starts to loosen up a little bit, or feel a little bit more open, if you will, we're going to get our forearms down on the ground, foot stays in the same spot, and then we wiggle our pelvis back and forth here. Now when I first started doing this hip progression, I couldn't really get down here, and after a couple of weeks or maybe a month, it became a little bit easier, and this is something I really enjoy doing. For this right here, I'm feeling this stretch on the inside part of the hamstrings and the groin. And then this is also where you can do some circles, trying to keep your left knee, in this case, on the ground, right foot planted. Okay, next part, right hand. Big breaths. Reaching away from that foot, everything stays in the same position. And then I'm going to plant my hand. Oh, no, I'm going to plant the outside hand and reach up. One breath. Two breath, reaching further and further. And then that third or fourth breath. And again, I'm feeling that primarily in the inside of the groin there, or the hip. I'll show you guys a different angle on this one. Hopefully it's a little bit easier to see. Now, I did forget one thing there. So this is the same leg. So I've come from this position, I'm back here, and now I'm going to work on doing some hamstring stretching or mobility. This is also going to floss the sciatic nerve a little bit, which is never a bad idea. And then I will show the other side so you guys will see it again as we go through this together. Keeping the foot planted, and I'm just bending backwards. You'll probably get a good stretching here through the hamstring. If you get any tugging or pulling on that nerve causing some numbness, you definitely want to stop. All right, last thing here, same leg, same position. This is where we're going to do a lunge. Now, predominantly I've been feeling this in the right hip. Here I'm feeling this in the left. Leaning that body forward. We can also get the arm involved too, and you'll get a beautiful stretch here through the front. You can lean over to the other side with nice easy breaths. That feels good now. I'm going to move on to the other leg. So, other leg I'm going to go through a little bit quicker. Hands planted on foot. Wobbling back and forth. And the thing I immediately notice is just how much stiffer this side is compared to finishing off on the other one. And it's amazing when you go through this just how much better you're going to feel at the end. And when you go feel that side-to-side difference, you can see that net gain. even if it's just feel, even if you haven't stretched the tissues or done any of the things that scientists are always worried about, if it feels better and the nervous system's a little bit more warmed up, I think it's worth doing. Now, I'm feeling good there. Hands are going down and my forearms in front of me. If you can't get down in this position, you could put a pillow here, or you could just use your hands and leave your forearms up above. But for the more well-initiated, we're down in this position again. Left foot is on the ground, forearms are touching the ground, right knee is on the ground, wobbling back and forth. A little stiffer on this side for me than on the other one, so we're going to spend a little bit more time than I was thinking here. I'm going to do some circles with my pelvis, kind of like I'm trying to draw a clock out with my navel. Alright, so that's feeling a little bit better there. Reach across from the planted foot. Now, on the other side, I felt this predominantly in my lat muscle. On this side, I feel it mostly in my hamstring. On the left side, so that might mean that I've got a little bit more tension built up there from some cycling. Maybe my pedal stroke's a little bit asymmetrical, I don't know. I just know I feel a bit more in the hamstring. So until that goes away, I'm going to hang out here a little bit longer until it's symmetrical. Again, we're windmilling up, we're opening up the hips here. I feel this predominantly in the right front hip, in the right front groin. And you'll notice with each breath I'm able to go a little bit farther and a little bit farther. Hands planted back on the foot. This is where we're going to do our left sciatic nerve floss. Now this is already feeling so much better than just a few moments ago when I was complaining about that left hamstring, so I'm good here. And now I'm going to get up, work through the right groin. And because we already worked through a lot of the right groin on the other side, I don't really need to spend too much time here. This is feeling fairly mobile. I'm working through the TFL right now with a little bit of a backwards lean and pushing that right hip forward and a little bit to the outside. All right, legs and hips, feeling mobile. Now we're going to go down into our cat-camel. I will say that if you have back problems or a history of spine issues, I would probably start with this after you have lied on your back for a few moments, and then do your cat-camels then, just to make your spine a little bit more mobile, a little bit more warmed up. Couple things here, I'm really pushing up through the hands, really trying to make an angry cat, really arching, and then following through and really making that camel, and then holding that for a little bit longer than 1 second, up and down. And when I go into my angry cat, if I tuck my chin, I can really feel it on the base of the skull and the suboccipitals, which for a headache sufferer like me, feels amazing. And then we're back down. And then the last few I can do a little bit quicker because I'm feeling loose and limber. Oh, very nice. Now typically what I'll do next is I'll get down and I'll do my reach back, just a couple per side. Heels are locked in on my buttock and the only thing moving is my spine with the back of my hand on the small of my back. This you should feel between the shoulder blades. If I take care of you as a patient, you become very familiar with this drill. It is probably the best or my favorite thing to give out to help somebody improve their posture. You should feel it between the shoulder blades, which is where we really start to see that head and spine shift forward with that anterior spinal shift. A lot of this battle that causes us to have bad posture and often poor spine health. So I've done my reach back and you feel that tightening up in between the shoulder blades, so I've worked that area. And then next I'm going to go through a little bit of a flow for the spine as well. So this is where we're going to do kind of a down dog or downward dog. I'm going to pump the calves out. Hands are planted on the ground. And then I push with my hands, pushing my butt up into the air. I'm going to hold this for a second, I'm going to try and drop my body downward, feeling it through the armpits and the lats. And then I'm going to flow through to an upward dog. And then I'm going to go back to a down dog. And I like to do this about 10 times. And make sure that my puny little cycling arms don't get any punier. But it's also just very, very good work for your spine. It's going to create some upper body strength if you do it regularly. It's going to target most of the spine and the vertebra, and just generally feels really good. I'm sure if you study yoga, there's something to be said about the flow of energy, or the flow through which you're going through in the body, more of a religious sense. I just know this feels fantastic. Oh, lovely. All right. Now, what I like to do next, I've warmed up the arms and the shoulders a little bit with that maneuver. I'm going to stretch out my lat muscles and the armpit tissues, which tend to get very tight if we're sitting at a desk all day, or even for me, hunching over patients. So for this one, I've got my foam roller. You could use a chair, and I'm doing a one-arm prayer stretch. Hand is flat. I'm really focusing on the underside of the arm and the back of the armpit. I'm going to take 3 or 4 easy breaths. And then when I get down here, I'm going to push a little bit down with my left hand into the foam roller. 3, 2, 1. And then deepen that stretch a bit more. Oh, that feels good. And then the right hand, same thing. Now with this, you'll notice my butt is not sitting on my heels. I'm just really trying to get into a position where I get the outside, the upper part of the lat here and the base of the triceps. Some of you might get more of a stretch with your thumb up, like you're giving somebody kudos, or just hand flat, really trying to feel it in through the lats and the triceps here on the inside or lower part of the arm. Don't forget to breathe. That's where you need to get that good stretch and release. Oh, amazing. Now, if you don't like doing the single arm one, or for some reason it's uncomfortable, try doing the double arm one. You'll probably get a bit of a different stretch here. And I'm all stretched out. I don't feel too much in this position. I've already done enough work. Now, if you're really stiff or I'm really stiff, this is where I will get down and do some foam rolling. And I'm going to roll the base of the tricep here. Let's move this a little bit so we can all see. I'm going to move the foam roller up and down on the tricep with a bent arm. Not too bad today, not too sore. I'm getting like a low level of intensity. I'll work up into the lats, and I don't feel anything here, which is either from the stretching I just did or from having done a good job on this yesterday. So I'm going to scan the other side. And this is one thing with the mobility routine or foam rolling in general. You're going to get a sense of what's a normal day, or what's good or what's bad. And you can kind of scan through a tissue. And so as I scan through the tricep, I'm looking for any sore, tight spots, or tough spots, if you will. And I'm not finding anything today, which is good. Some days you'll get a lot more. I've been a little bit better with doing this in the last couple of weeks, so I'm not finding as many tough spots, but you might, if this becomes a new regular thing for you, notice the first couple weeks you're finding a lot of sore spots. Might even take the first couple months, might take a year. But you're finding a lot of sore spots, but they will become less and less frequent and less intense with time. Oh, that felt good. So, what we'll typically do next is a couple things. I'm going to get to the hamstrings in a bit, but since I'm here and I found a wall, I'm going to work through the chest and the pecs. Hand here, really working on opening up the pecs here. And I think I'm probably going to spend about 30 seconds here, and I'm imagining like I'm turning my pec or my breast away from my hand, trying to draw this line out. Nice easy breaths, and I can feel that all the way from mid-arm through the chest and the pecs. And then for the other side, I don't want to have my back to you guys for too long, but same thing. So with this, I think it's worth noting, you might find that you get more of a stretch through the arm versus the pectoral, and whatever it is for you, that's fine. That will tell you maybe where you have more resistance or more dysfunction or more of a problem. I get it more through the arms, and it's probably from a function of being down on the bike a lot more, from having the arms really engaged and holding onto the weight of my body. If you are constantly forward at a desk, you might notice that a little bit more. Okay, so pecs are loose. Now to focus on the shoulders and pecs a bit more, I'll typically bend over and I'll do some swimmer touches. So the goal with this is the arms are swinging in and then back, and you're trying to touch your own fingers. Now, some mornings you'll notice that you're not loose and limber, and you have a lot of trouble making contact with those fingers, and that's okay. It's one of those cool measuring tips. You can see how you're doing on a particular day. Oh, so that's going to get those shoulder blades moving. Also going to open up the pecs a bit more. Next, I'm going to move on to the hamstrings a little bit more, doing my ground sweeps. Again, with this, it's a hip hinge like you're doing a deadlift. Nothing moves except for the hip. You'll get a little bit of flexion and a little bit of movement through the low back. That's okay. This, I'll do anywhere between 5 and sometimes 30. Depends how much biking you have to do on a particular day, how tight the hamstrings are. But when I can feel a substantial difference from when I started, I will call it quits. Okay, so that's starting to feel a little bit better. I feel like I'm getting a little bit lower. Then go on to the other side. These ground sweeps, because they are dynamic and we're not holding the stretch, they are something that's really good to do before a run, a ride, a workout, even going for a walk. Really, really good movement through the sciatic nerve, good movement through the hamstrings, and for the most part, as long as the core is tight and you're using the hips, really, really safe. Okay. So we've worked on the hamstrings, we've worked on the hip flexors. Something we haven't addressed yet are the quads. So typically when I'm making my coffee, I go ahead and I do a few of these kickbacks. And so I've even done this today before I've started this mobility routine. But a nice dynamic stretch similar to the ground sweep to warm up the quads. And then I'll just do a few holds here. Now with this stretch, really simple, but you can do a bunch of things to modify it. You can squeeze your abdominals and squeeze your glute, and you'll notice that you'll feel the stretch in a different way. You can bring the heel out to the side of the buttock. You can draw the heel over to the opposite side, and with both of these, you're going to notice those quads. You're going to feel a stretch in a different spot. Nice easy breaths. We're going to spend about 30 seconds doing this. So, really interesting. I did this for about 2 minutes last night on this left side. And then today, I don't feel anything on the left, but the right a little bit tighter. And again, something that every day we're going to be checking and seeing where we need to spend a little bit more time based on some feedback from our body. So, hamstrings we've covered, quads we've covered. Next, we're going to work on the gluteus medius and minimus on the side of the hip. And this, I'm pretending like I'm standing between two buildings in a very narrow alley. The only way I can move is sideways, and you should feel this stretch right on the side of the hips. And as ridiculous as it looks, it feels very, very good. The other option, if you don't want to do the dynamic one back and forth, I actually prefer to do a static stretch here making a big C with the outside of the body. And from the other side, you'll see that I'm actually fairly in line. Hip is out to the side. Beautiful deep stretch there. This is again one of those stretches where you might feel in a different spot depending on where there's tightness. For some people it's going to be in the low back and the QL. For some people it's going to be in the hip. And for some people it might even be more in the quad beside the IT band. Alright guys, so I've just got 2 things left that we're going to do. Now, thing number 1 is I'm going to put my hand above a doorway. I'm going to try and stretch out the armpit and these muscles here. And for this, what I'm doing is I'm hand here on top of the door, or you could also use it on a wall like this if you're not tall enough. But the goal here is clench the abdominals and just lean into the doorway. And when we lean into the doorway, we're going to feel again a stretch through the underside of the arm, and you're going to feel it through the armpit. So if you imagine there's a doorway here, I'm falling in, and I'm going to feel a stretch through this position. So hand, fall in, and I get a good stretch here through the underside of the arm. That I would hold for 30 to 60 seconds. This is even better if you can hold on to something like a rope or a band if you're in the gym up top. And then last but not least, again, a little bit more leg and cycling focused. I'm going to do some leg swings. And this is where I swing the leg up and down, back and forth, about 10 to 20 times. Try not to have too much motion through the low back, using the hip muscles to swing the leg forward. The weight of the leg brings it back, and then swinging it forward, hopefully a little bit higher on each go. Occasionally you can get some numbness and tingling or a little bit of a zap with this one. Just happens once or twice, it's probably okay. I do get that early in the morning, and it's probably just from freeing up the sciatic nerve from some tissue adhesions. Now, on this, you'll also notice some stretching in the calf, and that is a-okay. When it starts to feel symmetrical side to side, usually about 10 to 20 per, we know we are good to go. And then, last but not least, just a big stretch up to the ceiling. Big breath, little clap to finish things off. And guys, that is pretty much my morning mobility routine. I'm sure I probably didn't show you some stuff that I do from time to time. Oh, I just remembered. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to show you guys was the chair stretch. Now this, I prefer to use a couch. I'm not usually in this part of the house doing this. And it's not the most comfortable in this position, but usually couch, carpet, couch, carpet, and our chair stretch is just this. And with this, there's a couple things we can do to modify it to work the to work the hip flexors and the quads. I often like just to do a small lunge here. I feel this a little bit higher here in the quad. And I'll do this until, again, that starts to dissipate. Nice easy breaths. Not bouncing, just a little bit of rocking back and forth. Might need to hold on to something, that's okay. Okay, so that's starting to dissipate. What I'll typically do next is I'll grab my quad, and I'll more so lean my entire body forward. So with cycling, I find that the muscles where they insert above the kneecap often get very tight and often tender. This is a way to target that part of the quadriceps. Or if you're noticing you get more tightness or tension here in the hip flexors, this is where I can lean back a little bit with my body, and I'm pushing the hip forward, and I get this right here at the top in the front of the hip, likely iliacus, iliopsoas, TFL. And then if you really lean back, yeah, I'll really feel that through the top of the quadricep. So that was the last thing I wanted to show you guys. I hope that that mobility routine serves you well. I hope that it's helpful. I imagine I probably left a few things out, but if you do those things, that's going to leave you limber, feeling good most days, and definitely it's going to be a great way for your brain to wake up as well. We know that the brain loves movement. It is one of its biggest motivators to grow and get stronger, and actually helps you with just about everything from getting smarter to mental illness. So movement to start your day is a great way, and also this is going to help with injury prevention. It's going to help you perform better throughout your day, whether we're talking about emotionally, psychologically, at work, or physically. And in general, I think a morning routine is just so important for making the day your masterpiece. If you guys think I forgot anything or some things you like to include in your morning routine, please let me know. Write it in the comments below. And if there's something else that you want me to see, want to see me do a video of, you just let me know and I will happily make it. Take care, guys. Be safe. Chat soon.